Okay. Was it already in the house, or did you add it?
I added, you're talking about the individual switches for different rooms and stuff.
Right,
It oscillates it from the power.
right.
Yeah, I added it. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay, for you.
Well,
But-
yeah, that's not, a lot of people should not attempt it because they're messing with the actual, you turn off the main power and you swap out some wires, and that's how it's done.
Right, right. And so I had a friend of mine who had that done, and I said, don't do it, don't do it. You know, because he has a very small home over in like this kind of neighborhood, smaller than these houses. And he only can run 2 or 3 things anyways. And so he had it done, and he owed the guy money, and he never paid him. So the guy never finished the job, and he asked me to come in and fix it. And I said, I wouldn't know where to start. He had $500 or $800 that he already had in it. He paid the guy part of it, and the guy was smart enough to say, well, I'm not going to finish the job until you pay me the next installment. And the guy didn't. He didn't have the money. It's not that he didn't want to do it. And so I said, there's no way I can even touch it. It's just a whole series of, you're basically intersecting your lines and running them out so that you can control them, right, differently. And you're setting it up, so I assume, so each one doesn't have over a certain amount of amperage or wattage, you know?
There's not really a way to control that with my box. Simpler boxes don't have that. They do show you a dial that show you how much is being used on the 2 basic lines, but there's nothing that prevent. There are little circuit breakers too that are built into them, you know, the pop-up kind.
Um,
So I mean, it won't go over a certain amount, but you can't necessarily, you can't exceed the capacity of the generator
right,
because there's nothing to prevent that.
right,
But when you do it, you usually take into account the amount of amperage that particular room will use
mm-hmm,
when you're setting it up. So,
mm-hmm,
like you don't hook up your washing machine and dryer on a circuit because most of the generators will be able to handle that.
right, right. So we're doing essentially the same thing here. And so you have the power coming in, you have a circuit breaker, you have the lines running out to the to the various rooms, and one of them runs to your dryer. So what we're going to do, I may have to get another set of batteries. Okay, we're going to cut off the street power, disconnect the dryer from the receptacle, and run a cable and go into the dryer receptacle. And the reason we choose the dryer is because that's probably the most convenient, and it's generally closest to a door as opposed to a receptacle for the stove.
You're talking about bypassing a switch setting and using the actual individual circuit breakers?
Yes, yes.
Seen that done.
We're backfeeding it, exactly what we're doing.
Make sure they turn off the master power.
Yes,
That's very important.
right, and that was on there. So your house has to have a single breaker, same thing we're talking about, single master breaker. You have to have the main breaker be able to disconnect you from the city. You did a great segue into that. You have to have an existing electrical dryer. It has to be wired for 30 amps. They're set for 30 amps, but I have a 30 amp plug for my camper, but I'm running 20 amps into it. So I know I can't hook in there and backfeed because the wiring's not strong enough. And then you have to actually have an electrical cable that'll run from the dryer to the generator. I recommend you have a covered outdoor location for your generator. You cannot operate it in an attached garage or an adjoining room. And you have to allow for exhaust gases. I know of people who've had their generators away from the house, but the wind blew the exhaust in through open windows, and some got very sick, and I think in one case a person died. So people just, well, I didn't smell it. Well, you may not smell it because you have a cold or whatever, but it's still coming inside your house, especially if it builds up inside a room, like a bedroom, and then you go inside there and sleep the night.
There's a very inexpensive part of monoxide detectors.
Yeah,
They're also smoke detectors. So if you have one of those, and you have a generator, you should have one of those, because it'll detect a buildup of carbon monoxide.
great. I'm going to have to remember that because I want to put it in the slides. Okay. You can also use a range receptacle. Range receptacles have a different shape for the plug. They're rated for 50 amps, where a dryer is 30. Those are what the plugs look like. I'm going to go through it quicker now. So what do we know this far? We have to have a generator with safe operating location. We have an electrical panel that has a main breaker that you can disconnect from the city. You have a 240-volt dryer receptacle. And what you need is a cord that goes from one to the other, okay? And you have to remember there's a male end on each end. So there's a whole section later on that talks about safety on that. I can smell the brains working already. The electrical outlet has to be wired properly, has to be rated as we talked about. You have to, the longer the distance, the larger the wire. And for people who don't know, the smaller the number, the bigger the wire. The larger the number, the smaller the wire. It's the opposite system as to what you would think it would be. And we talk about if it has 3 slots, you're going to buy a 10-3 cable, 10 gauge 3 wires. If it's 4 slots, you're going to get a 10-3, and you're going to get a ground cable with it. And we talk about the difference between wire and cable. It's not a big deal, but sometimes people will go in and buy, and they say, boy, that was real expensive. But what they bought was wire as opposed to a cable, because wire, generally speaking, up to a certain gauge, is thinner strands, much more flexible, like a cord. And they'll buy a cord and pay astronomical amounts when all they need is a cable that they can flex a bit. You know? So just some little things that you and I know, but they don't know. The most common one on generators, if it generates 240, is an L1430 plug. The female up there is what you're going to find in the generator. The male is what goes to the cord. Again, I'm shooting through this kind of... Yes? Amen to that. Oh, I know people have called me, we're going to get a cord. Nobody's got them. I've tried everywhere. Yeah. Okay, and that's what it looks like. That's the female. That's the output side of the generator. This is the male plug. There's a hole in the back. And make sure you buy a plug that's big enough to handle the size wire that's going in. I've had people that have bought it, and I can't get the cable in. Well, then you bought the wrong size cord. You know, there's ways around it, but there's something else. I'll see if it's close here. Okay, those are just the 2 type, the 4-prong and the 3-prong, and what the males and females look like. What the wire would look like. Difference between cord and cables. We talked about stranding. Tools you'd need to put this together, to make that cord together. I have a 50 amp, 12 volt, actually it's probably higher than that. I think it's capable of handling 100 amps. That runs from my car battery to the rear of my car that I use to power my refrigerator. It's an arc welding cable. My neighbor wanted to do the same thing. And I have a 50 amp rated plug, 2 males that come like this. They're covered so you can't touch them. They go in like this, and they make the connection between the trailer and the car. So he goes online and buys it. But he buys a size smaller than mine because he just went by the picture. Now the wire will not fit the plug. So what do you think he did? Shaved off a lot of the wire to get it to fit. Now you got yourself a smaller gauge wire. So those are just some of the things you got to think about when you're doing these types of things. Little things. Not putting nicks in the wire. Don't solder wires, you know, as the only connection. This big, you've got to use a mechanical connector to it. All right. And how to do it. stripping it, getting the plug, etc. And I actually have sheets back there. If you want one, I've got a sheet that'll have the next 4 pictures on it. That's how to connect the 3-prong plug, how to do the generator end of it on a 3-wire, how to do a 4-prong plug, male plug on the end that goes into the dryer, or a 4-wire plug onto the L1430. So that tells you exactly what wires go where. Okay, buying a generator, so all the factors you need to think about it. You know, how much power do you need coming out of it? What would you like to run? Calculating the capacity. Can you afford to run it, maintain it, buy it? Does it need to have an electrical start? Make a list of all the essential things you want to power in your house, and see if any of it's, make sure you know whether it's 120 or 240. Here's a little chart you can use, but it's just the idea of it. You should make whatever chart you need. I've only put sample things down there, not everything that would be in your house. How to convert volts to amps. And I gave some examples, and people, I would expect, if you had an average group, would say, well, why do I have to learn all volts and amps and wattage? You know, well, here's the well pump. It's pulling 10 amps at 120 volts. That's 1,200 watts. But that's incorrect. Why is it incorrect? Because the well pump runs at 240. So now it's twice the wattage. Got the idea? So if you said, oh, this is all I need, I can save myself $300 by buying this size generator, and you haven't calculated in that you have 240 volt objects, all of a sudden you've got probably the inability to run as many things as you want at the same time, or even some things at all, if you don't have enough wattage.
Are all generators capable of running 240?
Mm-mm.
They would have to make sure that
Exactly. You have to make sure if it doesn't have that plug, it's not going to run 240, because everything else is just a regular common 2 blades with a ground. Yeah. There's a lot of generators that won't run it. The most common generators you see in the RV world is a 2,000 watt, because you can run a small air conditioner and everything else, and they're 120 volt. But when you start getting up there, that's when you start seeing. If you see the twist lock plug on it, the 4-prong twist lock goes in and turns, you know it's going to have 240. Then you got to figure out how much 240 is going to come out. Okay, so I say get a chart, what we saw a couple screens before, okay? But instead of being amps, write down whether they're amps or watts, okay? So the average person is going to say, well, okay, this device says it's 120 volts, 950 watts. Okay, then write down the 950. Oh, this device says it's 120 volts, but it's 3 amps. Okay, you write down 3 amps. Just write all the stuff down. And then we talk about how you calculate it. And you come back here and you change everything to watts. So these are some sample things I pulled out. A microwave draws, the one in my house draws 12.5 amps, which is equivalent to 1,500 watts. Toaster oven's the same. My range top is 240 volts, 34.2 amps, but that's all the burners on at the same time, 8,200 watts. So you calculate all that out. Now you get the total for all of the 120 volts, the total for all the 240 volts, and notice the range, 19.5 watts, actually 1,000 watts to 24,000 watts, because with my well pump, it takes 9.8 amps to run it, but 37 amps to kick the capacitor start on. I've never had a problem with it damaging my generator. But you got to remember that you need that much to do it, because you may have one that's so small. Mine is 6,200 running and roughly 7,000 peak. And now most of the standards are higher than that, 6,500 and 10,000 peak, roughly. But you got to check each unit. So you're down to now, how much do you need? You need 25K to 29K generator if you're expecting to run all of that at one time. And none of us are going to spend that much money. You might as well bite the bullet and spend $20,000, get one of these that automatically starts. It's hooked up to what? The whole house thing, right. Okay. For that much money, buy yourself an RV and go off for the week. Drive to Georgia, some other place, okay? So you have to figure out what's the largest single power drawing device you must use. Come up with that. Figure out what it is. And then look at your average range of power draw on the devices you're going to use. And start to calculate, okay, what's really a realistic figure? Because you don't need to be running. You can say, it's time to eat, folks. We're shutting off the air conditioner, and we're going to cook a meal. We're not going to run the toaster oven and the microwave at the same time. So we're going to cook only stuff that goes in the microwave, because the toaster oven uses the same amount of power as a microwave. So you have to do those types of calculations.
Did you talk about starting lines?
Yes.
Surge at the beginning?
Yes, that was the well. The well was the example of that, right. I was surprised it was 9.8, but it needed 37 to kick over. Yeah. So,
Did you talk about soft to start?
no.
You don't talk about it as an option. They put like a big capacitor on your motors that uses a lot less current to start up. It's already charged.
Oh, okay.
It's a circuit you have to put in with yours. Usually it requires a professional, but then it requires a lot less juice to start up motors.
Because it's already charged.
Yes, it's already got installed.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure, because I think mine may already have it, because I have a controller that's on the wall, and then the well pump is buried. It's on the end of the pipe. And I've gone in there, and I think there is a capacitor in there. I don't remember.
We have a starting capacitor, but this is something a little bit different.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. What must you run? What do you like to run? Don't work out your figures. You don't overbuy or underbuy. And again, can you afford to buy it, maintain it, and do you want electric start? I have an electric start on mine, but if I don't charge the battery. Now mine was more expensive because it actually has a separate circuit on 12 volts coming out to keep the battery charged. I originally bought the generator because I thought I might get into a business of going out and doing welding. So I made it portable. It's not portable, it's, gosh, I have to use my lift to put it in my trailer. It's got to be 300 pounds. So you start shopping online. Here's some things to think about if you're going to buy a generator. Is there a warranty if it's used, transferable, how well is it maintained, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're watching for them, watch after hurricane season. People are unloading generators like crazy to bring down their cost, or especially before Christmas. That's a big money item. That seems to be when they go on sale. Things about new generators to consider. We've talked about generators, et cetera, all these different steps that we've been thinking about. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's where we're. Yeah, these are all things that people don't realize, and then they're wondering, you know, how come we're always filling with gas? I think a lot of people I've talked to often run out of gas. They just didn't think it would take that much to keep it going. Okay, and this is just a kind of a step-by-step on how do you go through the operation of it. I'm not going to bore you with that. But here's the key. You never put that cord in that you've made. You never put it in if the generator's running or the house main breaker is on. You always have to make sure your generator's off and the house current is off. The main breaker is off. Because if you stick it in that dryer outlet, the other end's going to be hot because you got prongs sticking out. Vice versa, if you put it inside the generator and start it up and you're walking into the house to plug it into your dryer, you know, you hit the cabinet, you hit a kid, who knows what. So that's the biggest concern with this system, is that if you're not careful, you've got live wires, 240 volt. Oh. Yeah, yeah. Some generators, mine has a breaker on it. Some have a switch. I don't think I've ever seen one that didn't have a breaker. But those are, you know, mine has, for example, automatic idling where it adjusts the idle to the load. It has a very low idle to save on gas when stuff is not running. Those are extra features that you pay for. Mine's old. Mine's 30. So old, I don't know. I think it's 62 or 6,500 running. Yeah.
What would happen, here's a hypothetical for all of us. So if your power isn't actually off, and so you plug it into the wall, and then you plug it into the generator, what would happen?
You're going to burn something out. I think my guess is, what do you think, Bill? If you had, I think jamming a generator would be my thought.
Well, I don't think it would hurt the house because it already had power. But then you had power going into
The question is, if you got your generator, you got your house, and you forget to shut off the main breaker, so you put the cord in to the dryer, and so there's power running through the cord, and you didn't realize it, and you put it into the generator. Okay, that would be good. That would be very good. Oh, yeah. This is a step-by-step, every single step you do to run a system like this. It's 5 pages long. I mean, it is set up for the guy who says, well, you know, my neighbor helped me, we got it all installed. But sometimes I forget things. So it takes you through step by step of everything you turn on in the order you turned it on. Refueling the generator. Just step by step. And then thanks to our church for letting us use the property and the equipment and stuff. So that's basically how you do it. Would aircraft gas work? I guess it would be not much of an advantage with a 2-cycle engine if you stored something, because you still have the oil. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, my issues, the generator was because it sat so long. My neighbor, what he does, and I talk about it, but I never do it, and that is anything you have that's a small engine, start it at least every 2 to 3 months and run it for 10, 15 minutes. When you do that, you never have a problem. I've got I love that thing, but I haven't used it in how many years? At least 10, if not 15 years. I've got the last Lawn Boy 2-cycle mower they made. It's a commercial one. Love that thing. It's reasonably quiet. You don't have any oil to change, but every time I get it out, I got to disassemble the carburetor entirely, clean it all out, put it all back together, hope that the gaskets are good. And it runs, and the carburetor's plastic. It just runs beautifully. And people say, why don't you get rid of it? I said, because it's the best mower I've ever had. It's self-propelled and everything. And it just runs and runs and runs and runs and runs. I've never had Briggs & Stratton that's ever done that well. Oh. Well, I get the gas ones because everything I get for free. You know, the blower we have here, the gas blower. Did I tell you about? I'm walking, my neighbor and I are walking dogs, and we look and there's a trash pile. And in the trash pile is a perfectly clean, looks brand new, Hitachi 2-cycle blower. And I'm thinking, like, why are they throwing that out? And my neighbor says, I don't want it. He's got backpack blowers. He's got a couple of those. He has a lawn business. And I said, wouldn't you say that's in the garbage? He says, yeah, it's got all the garbage cans and everything around it. So I took it home. I put gas oil in it. First pull, started right up. I don't know why they threw it out, but it was brand new. And I've had it now 3 or 4 years, at least 4 years. And it starts first pull every time. I've never had a problem with it. So that's the reason I stick with stuff like that. People just, I don't want this anymore. It doesn't work. You clean out the carburetor and it works again. Yeah? I could have got on my girlfriend. She had a 45-inch TV, and she says, it's too big for this room that she has it in. She says, I'm always bumping it. So she says, I bought a 30-inch. I said, what'd you do with the big one? She says, well, you can't put it in the garbage in our city. It's considered non-recyclable. So I had to pay a guy $30 at a radio shop to take it. I didn't want to tell her that I would have taken it for free. I says, I guess that's the thing. She says, well, you have to be responsible in throwing it away, you know. We're done. Yeah, we're not even recording. Yeah. I'm done.
Actually, we were recording, but I did stop it.
Oh, you did? Oh, thank you. All right. Cool. Very good. Well, I guess we can put that on the internet along with the PDF. Any questions? Good.
Did you talk about gas stabilizer?
I have, some people like it and some people don't. And I've used it, and I have never found it to stay long term.
What's long term in your mind?
A year and a half, you know.